If you work on lots of diesels and you're looking for a 2-post lift, I highly recommend this one. I did lots of research on all the different brands, Challenger, of course Bendpak, Atlas, Rotary, and shoot, I probably researched over 20, 30 brands, several hours worth of research, and came up with this one, and I'm really glad we went with this one. There's the model. The LTA stands for long triple arm. As you can see, they're triple arms. It's also a symmetrical lift, which is what you want. If you're gonna be doing trucks, get a symmetrical lift. Don't waste your time with an asymmetrical lift. Those are best for cars. You can lift 1-ton trucks with them, because that's what the shop I used to work for had. It was a 10,000 pound asymmetric, but with an asymmetric lift, your door, well, this one's not positioned correctly, but this is an asymmetric 10,000 Challenger. But when you open the door, the rear of the door is going to be behind the column a little bit here. And so if you got a really long truck, long bed 4-door, and you got a lot of weight in the bed, well, sometimes it can't lift it because it's just too much weight in the bed. And when it does lift it, it's sketchy because you can't pull it very far forward, being that the front arms are a lot shorter than the rear arms. So if you're lifting long trucks, you definitely want a symmetrical lift. This way, now when you got the truck pulled up, the door, you can actually completely open the door. Most of the time, I got the door about 1.5 inches or so off of this column, which is really nice. You can have it on the lift and still be able to fully open your door and work on the inside of the truck at the same time. This lift here is one of the only ones I've seen where they actually angle the arms upward. So if you can tell, the carriage, of course, that's going to be completely level. See how they angle the arms up? It's a great idea, and I've never seen any of the other lifts do that. So when you do have an extremely heavy truck on here, it will deflect the arms until it's level. I've never seen it bend past level, and they don't deflect much. So these arms are massive. I mean, the first stage here, get the tape measure. 5.5 inch. Second stage, almost 5 inch, 4 3/4. Third stage, 4 inch tubing. It's good thickness here. Let's see, 1/4 inch wall. Now I did have to, these things were hard to slide in and out because on the bottom here, it had a sharp edge here. So if you do buy this thing, get yourself a little belt sander or something, come in here and round off this edge. It makes these arms slide so much easier. I also sprayed some black graphite spray on there. It definitely, that might not have been a good idea because it gets on your hands when you use this thing, but do the same thing over here. It had a really sharp edge and it would catch, so it was really hard to slide these arms in. After I did that, now much more easy to use. The pucks on this thing are solid. They're built tough, unlike the Challengers that are hollow. Not that it matters, but even the taller adapters, complete solid steel. This thing's very heavy duty. The other good thing about this lift is if you do have a Challenger, this is a Challenger 10,000 pound, the pucks are same exact size as the Bendpak, which is pretty awesome. Of course, they're hollow, but like I said, that doesn't matter. It's really nice to be able to interchange any of the accessories with this other lift. So the pucks measure out to be 2.35 2-inch. The other thing I like about this is the locks are very heavy duty. And when you let it down, it picks the locks way up, so there's no chance of the teeth binding. On some of the other lifts, they'll have bolts on the bottom that thread into this rod, so you can adjust how much it disengages it, but over time those bolts loosen up or tighten down into the shaft here, and then it starts grinding. This one doesn't have any bolts to worry about that are backing out on the bottom there. complete solid rod, so maintenance free on that. One more thing on these locks, when this thing was brand new and it was down like this, locks disengaged, you would rotate the arm, and a lot of times you could feel those gears grinding, just clack, 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 clack as you turn it. And the problem was, right here, it was squared off. You know, it was cut in a circle, and it had that sharp edge, and this piece here, the gear can rock just a little bit. And when it would rock over, that edge would bite into these teeth and cause it to grind. But now, I just simply lifted this up and you know, took a belt sander. Actually, I took this gear off here. That gave me room, and I took a little belt sander and did it to both sides of this gear, rounded that edge off. Now, no more problems with the gears trying to, you know, catch each other as I'm moving this arm. Now, a cool thing about this Bendpak is you don't have to buy your accessories separately. They do come with the purchase of the lift, but Bendpak accidentally sent us 2 sets of pucks, so you only get half of what you see here, and there might be plus or minus. They've been some are over there, but you do at least get a couple long ones and a couple short ones. You'll see when you go to buy lift, but it does come with the accessories here. It comes with the frame cradle, pads, and these round pucks. These we bought from Challenger because we wanted adjustability. You know, sometimes if you don't have this adjustable puck, well, you can still lift your truck, but it might be very unlevel. So the downside of these is it's made for the Challenger pucks, which are hollow, right? So if you try to stick it into the solid puck, you'll run into the problem of, you know, it'll work just fine like that, but if you try to thread it down farther, you know, the male thread starts sticking out the bottom of the sleeve, and then see how it doesn't slide down. And if you were to put weight on there, you're probably going to mess up those threads. So I would not recommend that. Granted, I could always pull off a hollow puck from the Challenger and stick it on here, but I mean, I'm not going to be using the puck if it's threaded in anyways. It's going to be extended, so that's not a big deal at all for me. One of the downsides to this lift is it doesn't go very low, of course, because it's meant for your bigger trucks. So you can get a car on here, but a lot of times you have to, you know, if it's a lower car than normal, you got to get up in there with a floor jack and lift the car up to get your arms under. As you can see, 7 1/8. Now I can pull the rubber pad off, and that'll drop it down by about 1/4 inch or so. Or I could use no pad at all. You know, if you needed to do that, you could. But just keep in mind that it's not the ideal lift if you're doing cars, that's for sure. Now, the motor is I think it's 2 horsepower. Yeah, 2 horsepower motor. And the hydraulic unit looks like the exact same unit you would find on your 10,000 pound lifts or so. Well, that one's a little different looking, but I think it still puts out about the same volume. And because of that, the lift is a lot slower. The reason it's slower is those rams are bigger, being a 12,000 pound lift, and so they require a lot more fluid volume to fill them up. And it's not a big deal, but I think the complete rise time on this was like 65 seconds from the ground to max. And if you went and looked at the other ones that were 12,000 pound, they were about the same. Now the Atlas was like 120 seconds, so almost twice as long as this one. So I definitely would stay clear of that one. I wouldn't want to sit there for 2 minutes while the damn thing's going up. Some of the bad things I don't like about it. So, you know, we laid it out on the floor before. My brother and I put this thing in and laid it out real nice with chalk lines on the floor. and got the measurements just perfect as far as the measurement from the inside of the column to the inside of the other column. That's going to affect you know, cable length a lot. And I got this thing perfectly level both ways. I mean, these things, you know, brand new unit. And look at my cable adjustment. I'm maxed out over here. And the instructions, which by the way are extremely poor, like the instructions are the worst ever. It's 2022. Why can't they at least give us some color pictures in a downloadable PDF document or something? Like, that's ridiculous. You're paying $10,000 for a piece of equipment and the instructions are just absolute crap. I mean, you'll figure it out if you're, you know, working on cars. You'll be able to figure it out, but I think that's pretty ridiculous. Anyway, so the instructions said to tighten these things down until both cables are of equal tension and just, you know, tight, but not like extremely tight, because these cables just serve to equalize the carriage assemblies here to make sure that when one goes up, the other one goes up with it. But anyways, so right here, we're completely tight. And that's, you know, it's snug, but it's not like really tight. And it's brand new. So what happens when this thing gets 5 years old or so? I'm worried that possibly they might stretch. I mean, it is a massive cable, so hopefully they won't stretch. And then the other one here, it's got a decent amount left, well, maybe 3/8 inch. I mean, it's pretty close to maxed as well, but I think that's their only saving grace. Anyways, I set them to the same tension. You know, it's doing good right now, but I think they should have made the cables just a little bit shorter for sure. The other thing is the hydraulic hoses are run internally to the columns, which I like because that gives you plenty of space on the outside. You can stick magnet trays or anything you want on the outside, and that hydraulic hose is not going to interfere like this Bendpak. All the hoses are ran externally along with the release cables for the safeties. All that's external. So you got a bunch of magnet trays, it's harder to stick them on your lift versus this one's all internal. The problem is they don't give you any way to secure the cables. I mean, they give you this little metal bracket, you know, welded on here every couple feet or so. These I added, you know, just sticky adhesive, you know, hold downs with some zip ties. But the instructions say to route the cables through the columns and put them inside of the, you know, guides here, and if necessary, secure with zip ties. It's like, well, what are you going to zip tie to? And I tried, I was like, well, I'll just stick it down in there and I'll just hammer it over just a little bit to squeeze the hose. But that didn't work either because, well, the clamp, it's just not deep enough to hold that hose. So that was very poor engineering on their part. If you're going to be wiring this thing up, the safety here carries line voltage to the motor. Unfortunately, they cut the hole too far back, and this cable here is under lots of tension there, which is why I wrapped it in loom and whatnot. If I could go back, I'd just elongate that hole. Just keep that in mind. Those wires are under a decent amount of tension coming off the top of that switch there. And while I'm up here, one advantage to this lift is solid steel with bronze bushing equalizer shivs. Really nice, nice heavy duty. Some of the other lifts, including, you know, rotary, supposed to be top of the line. Even some of their lifts have plastic equalizer pulleys, and my brother has seen them break a few times. You're not going to break these. Another thing I don't like is the safety release. It's just at a horrible angle. The springs on these things are pretty tight, you know, and to pull that down like that is just really awkward. So I'm definitely going to be cutting this, dropping that down, and re-welding that so it's level like every other lift. You know, this one over here. Very nice to pull. It's not up at some angle where you're trying to pull like that. That's a really awkward position on this lift over here. As far as specs go, if I measure from the end of the frame cradle pad to this end are 13 feet 5 inches. That's not to the center of the pad, but to the very end. Granted, when they're moved in, that distance is going to shorten up some. That's the first set of locks. It'd be nice if the two-post engineers could figure out a way to put the locks a little bit lower. A lot of times, working on a car on the two-post lift and pulling an engine, and I got the car lifted up, but it's not lifted up near this high, and so I got to put jack stands under the arms if we want to be completely safe, because there's no safeties when you're only a foot off the ground. So the pads right now are 26 and 5/8 inch. Granted, you could also put the other pucks and lower it down a little bit farther. So that's max lift height. About 76.25. I think it goes about a couple inches taller than most of the 10,000 pound models. And I'm sure you can see the height of this thing is just quite massive. So you definitely need a tall ceiling in your shop, but that works really good. I haven't put a van on here yet, but I know when I do, I should be able to pick it up no problem all the way, which would be really nice. As far as the overall construction of this lift, it's very nice quality, very good welds everywhere. This base plate, nice thick material, and very little warpage. I did not have to shim it much. There were some shims, as you can see, but very little shim had to be used to get this thing nice and level. As far as dimensions here go, you're looking at 25 inches. And overall dimension there is 22.5. So this actually went over where another 12,000 pound was, but the base plate was just so much bigger that we didn't have to worry about the anchors interfering with the anchor points of the old one, because this one's just so much more massive. Really nice reinforcement here on this arm. Reinforcement there. I mean, these arms, they don't bend at all. Completely solid. If you're watching this video, Bendpak, please make your mechanical stops taller. These things will slide up underneath this stage of the arm, and now it's hard to pull out. I gotta slam it out. Well, it came out easy that time, but it'll get jammed up under there, and you're under the car, and it's like it won't come out. So you have to slide it. And so if y'all would have just made it a little bit taller, we wouldn't have this problem. So here we got an 01 four-door F350 with a 7.3 power stroke, four-wheel drive, custom welding bed. Very heavy welder. No problem for the 12,000. Look at the arms. They're not even deflecting. This one is barely bending down because I didn't slide that second stage out far enough. But the other one where the second stage is slid out like it should be, look at that. It's still pointed uphill. Pretty nice. Here's 2017 power stroke with a welder. max lift height. The arms are just barely bent down on this one. The fronts look pretty level. Here we got a very large Mercedes Sprinter van on this thing. This thing's very long. We're still not to full extension on the rear arms or the front arms. It actually lifts up a two-door Jeep Wrangler pretty easily, mainly due to the frame being skinnier on these things than other cars. As you can see, we still have some arm left to slide in on both the front and rear on both sides, so I was really surprised. Now, the cars that are hard to get on this lift because of the arms being so long are the cars that, you know, you have to lift by the pinch weld on the body. So, you know, the frame is tucked way up under here, but if this were a car, a lot of times you have to lift by that pinch weld, and so the arms are just a little bit, I mean, they work, but you have to have them slid all the way in, and the car has to be perfectly centered. If it's 2 inches off center, or even 1.5 inches or so, it's not gonna work. And so you gotta get the thing nice and centered, and then as far as front to back, it's just gotta be absolutely perfect. A lot of times you are, you know, rolling the car back, sliding the rear arms in, and then rolling it back forward, sliding the front arms in, then recentering the car, and then finally, you know, putting your pucks where they need to be. So definitely not an ideal lift if you're gonna be doing lots of cars with this thing. And this is where this lift sucks. 09 Toyota Camry, it's not lowered, it's stock height, and these arms barely fit under here, of course, using absolutely no pucks. I was able to get them under the rear, but not the front. Just minimal clearance here. Over here, it's touching just a little bit, but nothing to cause any damage. Well, that's pretty much going to wrap it up. I'm sort of disappointed. I really wanted to lift an earlier year model 6.7 Power Stroke 4-door long bed. Some of those 6.7 Power Strokes, you can lift them with a with asymmetric 10,000 pound. That's what I did at my previous place of employment. But it was sketchy as hell because you had to lift from the body mount on the rear of the cab on the driver's side rear arm, because the arm's not long enough to reach all the way back and grab the leaf spring hanger. And thankfully, they have now updated the frames on the newer 6.7s, and you actually have a lifting point, if I remember correctly. But they definitely redesigned it, and you no longer have to lift it by the body mount. And not only did you have to lift it by the body mount, but you had to stack pucks like 2 feet high or more. It was sketchy as hell. With this lift, you're not gonna have to do that because the arms are just stupid long. And but yeah, it's been about a year since we started using this lift, and so far the cables have not stretched, and I'm really surprised, but the little sticky holders that I put on there for the hydraulic hoses, they're still holding on. So we'll see how long those go, but so far so good. But yeah, overall, I completely recommend this lift. And if you're having to work on these big, heavy diesels all day long, make sure to show your boss this video. Tell him I want a real lift. I want a Bendpak 12,000. No more of this asymmetric 10,000 pound sketchy shit. Any business owner should be able to invest the money for this lift to protect your safety. This lift used to be about $5,500. Now, due to inflation and other factors, we had to pay about $9,500 for this one. But it'll pay for itself in no time.